Hello and welcome to the La Papo podcast. I am so excited to welcome Adrienne, Achille from Expressive Healing. It's great to have you.
Yes, I'm happy to be here.
Yes. So I want to get kind of stuck into your perspectives around families. I know you do a lot of work with families of children with disabilities. What, if you could say, is the biggest challenge that you've seen? What is the biggest challenge?
Yeah, so I think with working with parents, I guess just the family dynamic as a whole, when parents receive diagnoses, so what to do with that. I'm actually working with a family right now who just received a diagnosis of autism, and just where to go from there. Especially when you receive the documents, it is quite a packet. I've read through so many of these, and of course there's all the different assessments that were used, but at the very end it talks about recommendations, and a lot of times there's like 20 different recommendations for what to do, what services to get. And that can be really overwhelming for parents. And just everything in a whole, like what to do next, what emotions are coming up for parents, how to support their child, what to do about the diagnosis. Do we talk about it? Do we not? So there's just so much when you get a diagnosis for the first time. Yeah. I've seen so many parents that are saying along the same lines of what you just said, and I can imagine when there might be a language barrier, or there might be a cultural barrier, or a difference. What are you seeing in that kind of sense, and what would you say to those families that are kind of, they've just got this diagnosis, they received the package like you just said, and there's this whole thing with 20 recommendations. What would you say to those kind of families? Yeah, I always encourage finding another form of support. So for instance, myself being kind of a parent coach who has helped families before through this process. So finding somebody else, whether that's a parent coach, whether that's an advocate, whether that's a support group, to just help guide them through the process, especially if this is new, especially if you're moved from like another country, or have a different cultural background, just to help guide through the process, because it is a lot, and it's hard to know even where to start, even if there's like bullet points of like 1, 2, 3, to 20. The process of where to start is very confusing.
Yeah. I love that term, parent coach. That's the first time I've heard of that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It is crazy. I've been in this field for about 14 years now in different countries. But tell us more about what parent coach is, and how, when a parent comes to you as a parent coach, what do you do with that process? Yeah,
that's a great question. So I don't even know if that's a new term or if that's been like coined recently. I know the coaching field in general is a little bit newer. So you can have a life coach or different things like that. But for parent coaching, it's more so, gosh, it could be so many different things. But when I see a family, it usually is how to best support the child. So for instance, if it's a parent coach for a child that has autism, it's like supporting the parents on how to set limits at home, how to practice different skills at home, how to support, and also a lot is supporting the family, or supporting the parent themselves. What are your experiences? What are you going through? Here are some connections, here are some recommendations. So with that, and I kind of do it a little bit very similarly to when I see families, or when I see kids individually for therapy, that I'll come up kind of with a treatment plan of, okay, here are our top goals. You want to build more confidence in your own parenting skills. So we'll start building those. We'll practice. A lot of times I do like little role plays where I'm like, okay, what's your biggest challenge at home? Let me
like practice. Let me be your child, and then we'll practice how responding. Oh, what is their typical response? Okay, how could we do that a little differently? And then I'm also their accountability partner too. So I'll come back the next week or the next month, however often we meet, and I'll say, okay, how was that? Did you practice that?
Yeah.
One, did you practice?
Yeah.
Which sometimes it's no, and that's okay. We can kind of go through obstacles. Okay, why was that difficult this week? How can we incorporate maybe that goal was too big. Let's break it down. What is more realistic? So that's a big one too. And then a lot of times it's validating the child's experience. So how can you better connect and better understand what your child is going through? If your child has a language barrier and they're screaming a lot, you know, how can we empathize and think, oh, if you couldn't speak the same way that we do, wouldn't that be frustrating? So just helping parents understand that a little bit better, and maybe even just how to validate the children's experience.
I love that. One thing I love about that is recently I've discovered this thing called a 2-gen approach, which is basically focusing on when you take care of the parent, you take care of the child. And I think a lot of things don't do that piece that you mentioned in terms of the parent coach. It's like, yes, your child has this diagnosis, yes, they have autism. How are you doing? How is that journey for you? Like, how are you managing with that? And I think especially in that first early diagnosis stage, there's so much around that, right? Because so many parents, you have this vision of when you get pregnant, like, oh, I'm gonna become this parent and my child's going to be like this, and then life starts to unfold and you start to realize the journey is different from kind of what you expected it to be. So what would you say to those parents, or kind of in that early stage diagnosis, what are you seeing that are the difficulties with acceptance, and what would you say to those parents?
Yes, and I think this is a great just a great question and a great thing to talk about, because I don't think we talk about this enough. Is when I see a lot of parents, they're coming to me like, how can I help my child? How can I help my child? And sometimes I do have to sit down and say, helping yourself is going to help your child. And like you said, when you first get a diagnosis, sometimes there's a lot of grief that comes with that. That your dreams for kind of what your life is going to look like, or your dreams of what you want your child's life to look like, might be changed some. It doesn't mean that that's going to go away fully, but there may be some changes to that. And so there's a lot of grief with that. And then sometimes with that grief, then there's an additional like shame on top of that I shouldn't be feeling grief. I should be happy for my child. I shouldn't, you know, all those shouldn'ts. So then that makes all these complex feelings on top of one another, and that's a lot to handle and to take on.
That is a lot. And I think there's also a piece around like society's expectations. Is like, I love what you said about like the pressure within self, and then there's a pressure within friends, and then there's a pressure within society. So you kind of have these like 3-part pressure, and it's also like, okay, well, how is your child? And there's so much focus on the child, but if your parent's not healthy, then it's going to be really hard for the child to be healthy. So what would you say to those parents that are kind of having a difficult time with acceptance? I think acceptance is something that's really big around individual acceptance, family acceptance, societal acceptance, and being able to go into those different spaces boldly, knowing, accepting your child and your journey. I
always say, like, working on yourself and working on processing these feelings are going to be really important for all of that, for acceptance, for your child's health, for your family's health. And so that may look like doing research. That may look like really just helping yourself understand, okay, what is this diagnosis? What are the services out there that can support my family? Then there's support groups. The more that you talk about it with others you know that your experience is not, your experience is normal.
Yeah.
That there are other people also going through this, and you don't have to do it alone. And then just kind of being honest with yourself, and being honest with how you feel about, like for instance, autism.
Yeah.
You know, what does that mean to you to have a child that has autism? And that may be something that's going to take some time. And knowing too that it's okay for this to be a process for you. It doesn't have to be, okay, I got the diagnosis, I'm going to take a week and journal, and then I should be good to go. It's okay that this may be a process just like your child's going through the same process. That, okay, you've kind of accepted it in this age. Now we're hitting puberty. And, okay, things are different now. And now I'm going to have to kind of go back and work through my feelings and process it again. Okay, we're not at the same place than maybe a neurotypical child. You know, how am I feeling about that? So a lot of just self-reflection, which self-reflection is uncomfortable and self-reflection is hard. So know that it's okay if you're struggling through it.
It's so interesting what you said, because it's kind of like you accept it the first time and then you have a transition, and then it's like, oh, it's a whole new level of acceptance. Like, and I think that's so interesting. Why would you say it's important to accept? Because there might be some parents that are like, okay, yeah, I hear you, acceptance, yeah, I hear you, like, you're not living the life that I'm living, or you don't have 2 children with autism, or why is acceptance and parent well-being, from your point of view, why is that important?
So what I've seen is that the more that we can accept the child, the more the child is going to accept themselves. So especially going through a new diagnosis, just a child as they're developing identity, that they start to notice. So identity development starts as early as like 18 months, where you're learning 18 months self-awareness starts to develop. Around age 5, self-esteem. So as early as that's really young. And so they're starting to notice how others interact with them, how others are responding to them. And so if a parent is not accepting of their diagnosis or trying to hide it or whatever that may be, then the child is going to internalize that too, that, oh, if my parent doesn't accept me, how am I supposed to accept myself? If my parent's hiding who I am, maybe I should hide who I am too.
That's good. And it's interesting because acceptance, as you mentioned, like the early developmental stages, there's that acceptance, and then they internalize that, and then you move through the different transitions. So you move from childhood to teenage, you move from teenage to adulthood. What, from your experience, helps with acceptance at those different points?
And that's a big question too.
That's a big question.
And I'm just gonna I sound like a broken record at this point, but just like a lot of self-reflection is to step back and just kind of realize, okay, what am I feeling at this moment? And being honest with yourself too. With some kids too, especially if there's developmental delays, those transitions also may look different. So teenagehood may seem more like preteen or elementary. Adulthood, like 18, may seem more like 13. So that's going to look a little different too. So and everybody's different. The same goes for autism. That's why it's a spectrum. Is that one kid on the spectrum is one kid on the spectrum. So helping, if you support yourself, you're also supporting the child. And modeling that, I always talk about modeling with so many parents, that if you're modeling your own self-care and your own acceptance, then that's going to roll over, and the kid will see that, and then they're going to realize, oh, okay, mom's working through her stuff.
Yeah.
Dad's working through his stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, I can work through my stuff too.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you mentioned every child is different. Because it is a spectrum, and every child receives differently, every child perceives differently, every child interacts differently. I want to get into expressive healing, your company, and how you support parents. So we've kind of mentioned this acceptance piece, we've mentioned the importance of the two-gen approach, the importance of the well-being of the parent and the child, and how they're connected. Tell us about expressive healing and how do you support parents along that journey?
Yeah. So whether I'm working with just like the child alone for individual play therapy sessions, or if I'm doing family, or if I'm just doing parent coaching, I'm always working with the parent. So for individual sessions, for instance, if a parent comes to me and says, you know, we want to work on emotional regulation, I will let them know, especially younger kids, I want them a part of the process too.
Yeah.
So about every month, sometimes it can be more often if we want, I will have a parent session where we will just work on, I'll get kind of an update on how they're doing at school, how they're doing at home, and then I'll kind of give them some information. Okay, we're working on this. This is an activity you could do at home.
Yeah.
This is something that you can practice, and then like some kind of skill. Maybe we'll role play.
Nice.
Maybe we'll talk about just feelings in general, and talk about how can we validate those feelings in a supportive way.
Yeah.
So about once a month, I meet with parents, and then depending again on the age and kind of what kind of theory I'm using in sessions, sometimes I'll have parents come in at the very end of session, and I'll empower the child to say, okay, mom's coming in, we're going to teach mom the activity that we did today.
Yeah.
So that empowers the child to feel confident and excited to teach the parent, and then they can do it together in session with me where I can kind of be the guide.
Nice.
And then they can use that at home and keep
Nice.
practicing at home.
Nice.
So it's all of this work is really about empowering too. Empowering the parents to feel confident in accepting who they are as a parent, who their child is as a child, and with all their diagnoses.
Yeah.
And then empowering the child to believe in who they are and not reject any part of their identity.
That is so good. I love that you said so many things in what you said. I kind of have a question around, do you see a difference in the parents that show up versus the parents that are maybe aren't able to, the ones that are kind of more engaged? Do you see a difference with the outcomes in their child? And I also love the piece that you mentioned about identity and acceptance and identity as well. So I'm kind of curious, do you see any kind of correlation between those pieces?
I do. The parents that are more willing to jump in to try things at home, even if it doesn't go perfectly at home, because it won't. It's a process. But the ones that are trying new things, that are asking the questions, that want to be more engaged, the ones that are able to maybe have their own therapy sessions, that are able to go, or at least go to some kind of support group, so they're trying to just understand their child more. I do see a lot more acceptance, like the child accepting themselves too.
Nice.
That clearly I can't talk about, for confidentiality, can't talk about any specific kids or anything, but I just thinking back to some kids that I've worked with in the past, like calling autism their superpower, or even ADHD, like, oh, this is my superpower. Because of my autism, I am more creative. Or because of my ADHD, I make friends really easily. Or whatever it is. So that strength-based approach too, which shows like the parents are on board with that. Like, yeah, we talk about it as the superhero or as the superpower, and we've read these books and this book, and And so I do see a lot more confidence in those kids. So yeah, when everyone comes together and collaborates and is kind of on the same page, I do see just the identity is a little bit more accepted and confident.
Yeah. I love that because it is, like you said, like the modeling and seeing your parent working and seeing that everyone is kind of in together for your development. I can imagine how that has a great impact on the child. I'm curious, those parents that aren't as involved or don't kind of put the work in at home, what do you feel like is the barrier there? Like, what do you feel like is the challenge that's causing them not to engage as much?
And that's so hard to answer too, because there could be so many different things. When you have a child with a disability or just an extra need, finances are a big concern. Things are just you'll have extra services, just extra things that you'll have to do that cost money. And so I do see parents having to take on more, an extra job, or have to work later hours, or things like that, which do make it challenging. And I do think that a lot of parents are doing the best that they can with the circumstance. So there's that piece. Then there could also be the acceptance piece. I know I've talked a lot about that. That I think with all of the different emotions that are coming up for parents, whether it's grief, whether it's overwhelm, whether it's shame. I'm going to talk about shame too, because with getting a diagnosis, I've also seen some like shame and guilt around that of, could I have done something differently? There's a family history of autism or whatever diagnosis, or did I medically do something I should or shouldn't have? Did I should I have done accommodations earlier? So if you get a later diagnosis, and the kid's 11 or something, then parents are thinking, oh, should I have gone earlier? Should I never have gone? So all those feelings come up too. And then there's also a little bit of denial as well that I can see in some parents, some families, is I'm just gonna not. I'm gonna not think about it. Because if I talk about it, then it becomes real. And it's scary.
That is, I feel I've seen a lot of what you've kind of mentioned along the journey of working with parents in different settings. Because there's that stigma, isn't there? Like, and that stigma can be so heavy. Like, and it kind of goes back to that thing of like the family, the friends, society, and it's like, okay, have you accepted your child for yourself? And that shame piece can be so big. What have you seen that's worked for parents who are in that shame and guilt? And because that's a lot of emotion, especially when you're trying to balance that with your own life and you're working and you're trying to be social with your friends. I feel like a lot of times parents' lives take a toll. Like they might not have as many social connections as they used to. They might not be able to work as long as they could before. I've seen parents that have had to leave their full-time jobs because they had to become full-time caregivers. So there's so much around it. But yeah, I'd be interested to hear your opinion on that.
And shame is such a big one too. That's a big emotion. And I guess when I think about it in a therapy setting, it's kind of like breaking down that emotion. And so I think about it, the difference between shame and guilt. Guilt is, shame is attached to your identity. Guilt is like a thing that happened. So even being able to break down shame a little bit to become guilt rather than attaching it to your identity. And then from there kind of breaking that down a little bit more too. And again, I'm broken record processing those emotions and just kind of talking through them.
Yeah.
I always say if there is a way to connect parents with other parents, with other families, with a support system where they don't feel alone.
Yeah.
And also sharing, sometimes I share like videos and books and articles where there's still like the love, the happiness, like the happy times, where this doesn't have to be like all about the challenges. There's wonderful things that can also come out of it. There's connections that you can make that maybe you never would have had. So reminding them that there are still great things that you can achieve with your child. There's supports out there. There are accommodations out there. So kind of helping boost that, and so it's not just kind of black and white.
Yeah, I love what you said. Two things were, one was the identity piece, and it's interesting how something can happen and you can internalize it and then blame yourself for it happening, and I think that's really interesting. And the other is like changing the narrative. I think there's so much around children with special needs, and I feel like the narrative needs to be changed.
Yes.
I think special needs, disabilities, behavioral challenges, all of the things, there's such a heaviness on it. And then it's like, okay, that makes it harder to accept as a parent, because if you're coming into this society where there's so many different narratives, it's almost like you have to create your own narrative. Yeah, I think that's really interesting.
Yes.
It's an area that's I'm really passionate about, is like changing the stigma.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
Who says it has to be that?
Yeah.
Like, who says that this has to be this way? Like, you create the story you want to make. Like, you create the narrative you want to live. Like, you create your child. Someone said to me once, like, they've spoken to their child and they said their child's going to become this thing. Because you can see every child is unique. Every child has their own pieces and their own quirks and their own uniqueness, and it's like when you nurture that and really focus in on that child's uniqueness, everything else just becomes noise. Yeah,
and if we can boost, like I think about, okay, if we hide the diagnosis and we don't let them know, then we're creating this narrative that, okay, that diagnosis is bad, that diagnosis is something that needs to be hidden. But if we, from like an early age, like celebrate it, encourage and talk about it openly, then the narrative that we're creating is, this is something to be celebrated. This is something that is a unique part of you that we don't have to hide, that we can talk about, that we can. And something I also talk about too is that when you tell a child that they have a specific diagnosis, they might also not care. They might also just be like, okay, mom, dad, whoever, caregiver, okay, that's cool, I don't care. And that's okay too. They don't have to like attach to it and want that to be their whole identity. It may just be, I don't care about it. It may be something that later on in life, they're, a teenager or an older adult, and they're like, you know what, let me explore this a little bit more. So you kind of have to like go with the flow of what your child is feeling and wanting too, that, okay, they're asking more questions about it. Let's dive in a little deeper. Oh, they don't really care about it right now. That's okay, maybe that'll come up later. So it's kind of this ever-changing process, ever-changing narrative that you're creating alongside your child.
Yeah, I love that, because it's almost like you have to flow with how they flow. Like, you have to go with kind of how they develop. You have to kind of observe them and then go along their path. And there's not really a written book of it, because every child really is different. So if you look at every child is different, period. So can you tell us about that, the moment, you kind of mentioned the importance of a parent accepting diagnosis and then kind of talking with their child about that diagnosis. Why do you think parents are reluctant to talk to their child about it? And for the parents that are reluctant, how would you advise them to kind of even start to broach that kind of conversation? Especially considering that every child, like you mentioned earlier, on the spectrum is different. How would you advise a parent to go about that conversation?
Yeah. So, first part of your question, why are parents reluctant? And I kind of talked a little bit about this too, but one big part is like all the different emotions that are coming up. That it's just like overwhelming, not sure where to go, and then there could also be a little bit of the denial piece of if I tell my child, then it's real. I'm scared. I don't know where to go. I'm just gonna kind of like just not, out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Let me not.
Yeah.
Then there's another piece that's, okay, I don't want my child to think less of themselves because of this stigma. I don't want other people to think less about them.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't want to fill in the blank. So they think that the thought and the idea is, okay, I'm going to protect my child by not letting them know.
Yeah.
When really what's happening is that it can harm the identity later on, because children will figure it out.
Yeah.
Whether it's from you or whether it's from kids at school, whether they'll start realizing, okay, I'm a little different. Things are a little different for me.
Yeah.
Autism is hard, or autism, just like ADHD, learning disability, sensory processing, all of that stuff is hard because it's invisible.
Yeah.
You can't look at someone and say, oh, you've got ADHD. So it is easier to hide. But when a child starts realizing, okay, I do have little extra needs, extra challenges, they're gonna start asking, or either asking around, people will identify it for them.
Yeah.
Or they're gonna go to like the internet and try to figure it out that way.
Yeah.
And isn't it nice for us as caregivers, as supports, as parents, to be able to come in and tell them and kind of start that narrative for them, rather than the kids at school, rather than the internet, and be supportive of that narrative that they're creating, rather than them learn from some other source.
Yeah.
So again, the parents a lot of times are trying to protect their kids.
Yeah.
And just not thinking about maybe some of those other things.
Yeah.
And then broaching the conversation, I always think about it as like when a child starts noticing things about themselves and starts saying, Mom, I noticed that it's really hard for me to sit still, or I noticed that I don't get those jokes that we watch on the television, or whatever it is, or I'm really sad sometimes, I'm really angry other times, and I can't control it. That might be the time where you're like, okay, they're starting to realize and identify some of these things. Now is the time to have that conversation. And sometimes it might be you're reading a book about, there's so many great children's books out there about autism, and like, I of course can't think of any right now. There's one that's, even that one has gone from my brain. Some brains, I think that might be one, but there's so many great ones out there. Yeah. So it might just be reading that book to them, and then kind of asking them some questions. What do you notice? Do you relate to that character?
Yeah.
And kind of have them kind of figure it out a little bit too, and then have a conversation in that way.
Yeah.
And it may just be kind of like flat out talking about it and teaching them. And then, of course, in a developmentally appropriate way.
Yeah.
A really young child is not going to understand like big words, neurodiversity, things like that. Yeah. But it might just be, breaking it down little by little. And then as they age, explaining it a little bit more. But kind of in that process of figuring out, okay, I just got this diagnosis. What do I do next? I would say number one is to process your own feelings.
Yeah.
What do you feel about this diagnosis? How are you feeling about being a parent of a child with autism, ADHD, whatever, fill in the blank. Then start doing some research, learning about it, and that may be first like on your own, learning about it more, and then incorporating the family in, you all learning about it, together, like siblings too. That's a whole nother topic. I do a lot of sibling support groups for children that have siblings either on the spectrum or just like other needs. But yeah, so as a family, kind of talking through it, working through it, and then having that conversation with the child, kind of either separately or as a family, and kind of going from there. But I would say it starts with your own work.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned your own work and acceptance and self-reflection. I'm curious, because you kind of touched on the piece where the parent's identity kind of links with the child's identity, and their acceptance links with their child's identity acceptance. Would you say that it's the same impact regardless of where on the spectrum you fall? So if a child, for example, non-verbal, pre-verbal autist, maybe level 3, versus someone that might be more high functioning, would you say that the impact on identity is the same across the spectrum?
That's a great question too. Definitely the way that you broach a conversation is gonna look different for all the different, I guess, levels. And we have to remember too that whether it's level 1 or whether it's level 3, there's still identity development. Whether they can verbalize that or not, there's still so much going on inside of them. There's still they still have hormones like we do. They still have a process they're still developing. It may not be verbally. It may be delayed. They may never make it to, the developmental adulthood, in terms of like cognitive development. But there's still identity. There's still attachment. There's still feelings. And so yes, but just kind of the way that you go about the conversation will look different. Still being able to support them and accept, like, this is my child. They're great. Praise, encouragement, all those things. It just may look different.
I love it. I love that you mentioned that as well, because I think a lot of people who might not be in the field of autism kind of look at children that might be pre-verbal or non-verbal or not have the best expressive language. They can still receive what you're saying. They still have identity. They're still a person underneath all the things. Like they're a child first before the diagnosis starts here. And I love that you mentioned that identity still has an impact on them. They can still feel when the parent loves them. They can still feel when a parent accepts them. And I feel like a lot of times that shows up behavior-wise. And I think that's really, I love that you mentioned that. Yeah. That's really good. First, I want to ask you to let us know where parents can find you. And then if you have kind of 3 points that you definitely want parents to know and to keep, to be aware of.
So my website is expressivehealing.org. So that's probably the best way to find me is through the website, and then from there you can contact me through email or phone. But that kind of also gives more background about me, and then you can find all my services on there. Like I said, individual therapy, parent coaching, family therapy, and then I also do some groups. So right now, going into next year, so starting in January, I'll be doing actually a lot of groups for parents to support parents. So a child-parent relationship training group, which is learning play therapy skills with your young children. And this can be used, all the skills can be used through any, whether you're neurotypical, whether you're neurodiverse, all the skills can be used. And then the other group is yoga for anxious parents. I'm also a yoga teacher.
Wow.
Yes. So teaching, it's a processing group, but also incorporating somatic work like yoga, breath work, grounding, movements, but very gentle movements. So just to help parents regulate and also connect with other parents. So all those groups are really wonderful too, because you meet other parents and you're able to normalize your experience. So I always love groups, so check those out as well.
Can I just say, I love that you do yoga for parents. What? I've never heard that before. Yoga for parents that can help, like, emotionally regulate and to deal with acceptance. That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that group, because I teach yoga on the side, but I wanted to, because it's all wellness. So I was like, how can I bring the two together? Amazing. So yeah. So this group is just for moms, but don't worry, dads, we'll get you.
Yes.
And when I say moms, caregivers, like you, honestly, even if you're a nanny for a family, please join too. It's not just if the title's a little bit more fun and like tries to get you in, but anybody that works with kids, grandparents that want to come too.
Nice.
But yeah, so I have those groups. So everything's on my website. Also, I'll be adding a blog to my website as well. So you'll get kind of every week I'll update that. And then 3 little tidbits for parents. I guess the first one really is that what you're experiencing is valid. All the feelings that you're going through. It's overwhelming. It can be scary. It can, the guilt, anything that you're experiencing right now is valid. It's a lot. It's new. Also, it's a new experience. If it's new for you, maybe this is a second child. But even whether it's first child, second child, whatever, it's still new in a different way. So everything that's new takes some time to adjust to. So give yourself time to. And I guess that's one, but I guess 2 that kind of goes off of that is know that you're doing the best that you can. Like, give yourself some grace. That it's tough and it'll take some time and it'll take trial and error too. And give yourself some grace with that too. And then I guess 3rd is finding a support system is probably gonna be, and that is something that you can find without financial. There are Facebook has tons of parent groups, specific just in general for moms or parents, but then they have specific ones that are like parents of autistic kids or parents of ADHD or whatever it is. So those are great resources to connect with other parents so that you don't feel alone. Finding a way to connect, finding a way to give yourself a little self-care, because really it does start with you. If you're able to feel confident, accepted, accepting, and just a little bit more at ease with everything, then that's gonna go into your parent-child relationship and how your child feels about themselves as well.
Accepted and accepting. I love that. I feel like that sums up the whole experience. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
And the link to your website will be in the comment section of the YouTube, so if you're looking for the link, that is where it will be. And it's been great having you.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful. I'm glad that you invited me on.
Yes. I think what you do is amazing, and it's going to help a lot of parents, especially their yoga. Go check out that yoga class.
Yes, yoga and counseling. Both together.
Yes, mix it together. I love it. I love it.